How's it going? Welcome to Rational Live. It is July 24th, 2020. I almost wrote down June a bunch of times when I was making the thumbnail, making the title. I kept thinking it was June. I can't believe it's already the middle of the summer, and I've barely got to do anything because of coronavirus. But that's how this year has been. Shitty. No other way of putting it. This year has been shitty. Also, I had to do my hair kind of. I see someone in the comments just mentioned my hair. Yeah. If I hadn't put anything in my hair, it would be even crazier than it is right now. It was wild, man. My hair gets wild when it's dry. It is wild. So I have to tame it a little bit for the YouTube audience. I don't want to freak all you out, but it is what it is. All right, today, before I get going, this is the Patreon page right here, rationalnational.com/join. That helps me do my work. And you should know, YouTube really does not like me discussing what is happening in Portland. Every single video on that, in terms of what the feds have been doing there, demonetized immediately. And the demonetization doesn't even, as long as I have support on Patreon and stuff, that isn't even what bothers me as much as the obvious deplatforming. Because when those videos get demonetized, the views stop immediately. I've noticed that every single time any one of those videos get demonetized, the views stop. So they stop suggesting those videos on suggested videos after people watch a different video. So those videos won't pop up. It won't pop up in your feed most likely. So it's the kind of thing where to help me continue this reporting, I need help. Now, obviously, it's a tough time right now. If you can't afford it, don't bother. Just you being here and sharing this around is fine. But if you are in a position where you can help, of course, every little bit helps. Also, let me give you a little preview of today's show. I always struggle with the thumbnails on these live streams because I don't want to give everything away, as I do tend to cut clips out of these live streams and make different videos. But I think we got a pretty good show today. So I kind of gave you all the boring stuff on the thumbnail, Biden and Trump, but everything else I think is pretty good. But I'll be talking about Trump. This is an old video now, but Trump bragging about his intellect and passing that test. It's just too funny not to share. Fox News having on Stephen Miller and Stephen Miller's thoughts on what's going on in Portland. Won't really surprise you, but it's worth talking about. Trump, a PolitiFact Trump thing that I'll get to. PolitiFact saying that Trump kept a promise, but you will laugh at how they frame the entire I guess, PolitiFact, but we'll get there. Biden dominating Trump in swing states. So more polling out, a Fox News poll. I'll get to that. Ben Shapiro. Yes, I'm doing 2 Ben Shapiro things in one day. I posted my discussion about Ben Shapiro from Twitch, his appearance on Joe Rogan. I clipped that out of my Twitch show, which, by the way, Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time. Check that out. It's twitch.tv/The Rational National. That's below the video as well. It's a fun morning show. I go over, sometimes they're a little more prepped than other ones are. On Thursday and I think Wednesday, I had fairly prepped shows and went through a bunch of content. But check out that morning show. Anyways, Ben Shapiro, I talked about him, his appearance on Rogan, and I have more Ben Shapiro today. So we will get into his thoughts on... I'm not going to spoil it. Actually, it's a couple of clips. It's 2 different Shapiro clips. So I will get there. Biden having a healthcare talk with Barack Obama. You know, you kind of know what to expect from that already. And then a bunch of stories. So I put UFOs in the title. I don't really have anything prepped except for just the main piece of news out of that. But apparently, UFOs are... materials from a UFO, or I guess as they describe it, an off-planet vehicle, is in possession. The government has that in possession. So they have now admitted that they, in fact, have materials from an off-planet or off-world vehicle in their possession. Pretty crazy stuff. And it's funny that I only saw that piece of news like 14 hours after it broke. That's how crazy 2020 is, that news of an alien spacecraft in the possession of the U.S. government it's not that big of a deal, I guess, though it is a big deal, but it doesn't get the attention that it would normally get. And I got some other stuff here that I didn't really prep completely, but there's some interesting stories that I do want to touch on, or in some cases tweets that I do want to touch on later. All right, that is a big intro. But before I even get to anything, I actually want to give a little shout out here. I did this in the past. I'm going to try to do this more often if I can remember to do it. But I want to start giving shout outs to people that do great work in this field and deserve your subscriptions if you haven't already subscribed to them. Today, Ben Dixon. So I've talked about Ben before on this show when I was doing those shout outs, but I watched this clip today. Ben's doing great work here. So I'm going to play this for you, and I'll give you an idea of what to expect from Ben's show. And just look up Benjamin Dixon on Twitter or on YouTube. You'll find him. Let me play this clip from his show.
I want you to take a look at a couple of tweets. The people who tweeted it, it's not important. Not important. What's important is what they're saying and the kind of reach that they're getting and the timing of it. I want you to take a look at this first one. He said, essential workers have a valid reason to be upset about people sitting at home getting $600 LOL. Now, again, I don't care about who the individual is, pretty small account, but I want you to look at the reach of this tweet. 65,000 retweets, 269,000 likes. This message, and actually let me keep going before I even go. Here's another one. Here's someone said, I worked my ass off at Amazon with a hot and sweaty mask, risking my life while unemployment got $600 sitting on their ass. Make it make sense. Okay. This is what I kind of got. I had my suspicions that this was coming, and then I started seeing one tweet and then another, and I'm like, something coordinated is happening here at the very time where Congress is discussing continuing the $600 a week benefit for people who are unemployed. And then all of a sudden, here come more tweets. Here's, people on unemployment shouldn't have got the extra $600. They should have gave that to essential workers. Again, the individual, the people, that doesn't matter because they're small accounts. And this is not about putting those individuals on blast at all. It's about the idea that exists. Like, I'm not trying to suggest that these ideas are a coordinated psyop, right? What I'm saying is this type of thinking exists, and all it takes is a handful of people with enough reach to create this division or to exacerbate the division that already exists. Because America has invested in this capitalistic system across the globe, has invested tremendous amounts of money and resources into making sure that the poor will always be mad at other poor people. And most of all, for people to not even understand that they...
So that's the clip. Ben does a great show, and he's right. I mean, this is what the capitalist class loves to do. The capital owners, they love to see the poor people fighting. People fighting, people getting angry at unemployed people getting $600. When, let me show you what recently came out. Jeff Bezos makes $13 billion in one day during the pandemic. And you have people getting angry over people that lost their job during a pandemic getting $600. So never fall into that kind of thinking. Never get angry at your fellow workers. Never get angry at people who are unemployed. Your effort, your focus should be on those that are screwing you all the time. And not even necessarily just Jeff Bezos, but on the system that allows this. Because really, it's not even Bezos' fault that he makes this kind of money. It's the way the system operates. It's the way capitalism operates. So make sure you know where to focus your fight. All right. So again, Ben Dixon does a great show. Check him out. Now, I must prep the next show. Also, of course, I'll be taking super chats throughout. I'm already seeing a bunch pop up, so maybe I will grab some of these now. By the way, if you're new to the show, I try to remind people this every week. if you're new to the show, there's constantly going to be gaps of silence, as I am the only person here. So I got to prep stories. I got to click links, that kind of thing. I got to find the super chats as I do every week. Always buried in the UI. All right, here we go. Ravi Parimi says, I laughed hard when I heard Biden and healthcare in the same sentence. I mean, really, with a few exceptions like Bernie Sanders, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, hearing healthcare and any politician in the same sentence should make you laugh, as nobody right now, except for those few, are really fighting for people. Josh LeBlanc here says, oh, great, big donation. Says, fellow Canadian here. I'm so glad to have discovered your channel this year. I like the mix of U.S. and Canadian coverage. Thank you for all you do. Thanks, Josh. Glad you enjoy it. Also, Ravi, you're also a consistent super chatter. Much appreciated. Mikey Kingston here says, Baba Booey. We're doing this again? Baba Booey, happy Friday, David. Thank you, Mikey. Me, myself, and I says R.I.P. plus Michael Brooks. Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually going to bring up Michael Brooks in one of my stories today, because it's applicable. But yeah, his content is timeless. I'm sure most of you, if you follow the channel, you already saw my video after his death. So I'm not going to go over that again. But if you go to the Michael Brooks show, a lot of his content is timeless in the sense that he didn't necessarily follow the news. He was focused a lot on organizing, on fights happening internationally in terms of workers and against capitalists, and focusing on various leaders throughout history that have been able to give a voice to the working class. And he's at great interviews with people like Richard Wolff, Milton Alamati. I don't know. Really, anytime Michael Brooks has somebody on, it's somebody worth paying attention to. So if you go back in his history, check out the interviews that he did. They're all worth checking out. I was an early Patreon to his account. One of the few people I'm Patreons to. Not that there isn't a lot of people worth your Patreon money, but he was the kind of content where there's no one else doing what he was doing. So I wanted to make sure I supported that from the beginning, and it's going to be tough. It's impossible to fill his shoes. No one account, and even several of us, no one was doing the work he was doing. So we all kind of have to step up now. All right. Let me prep the next story. I'm going to pause on the super chats there. This is where I go radio silent. Actually, I think I have a few links from this one. So I almost didn't cover this because honestly, it's not really important, as you're going to see. But it made me laugh. So, occasionally, even if something is not really worth reporting, if it's going to be a little entertaining, then it's worth doing. And maybe if I can throw in a little information at the end, which I will, as you're going to see, then maybe it is worth doing. All right. So Donald Trump has had a couple recent interviews with Fox News. The recent one with Wallace I covered, just the completely bonkers interview. It was a 40-minute interview, went all over the place. He has a new one, or a more recent interview with Fox News, where he goes on to brag about his intellect because of the very simple quiz that he took. So I'm sure a lot of you have maybe already seen this clip, but man, it is worth playing again. And I'm also going to show you some parodies, some people making fun of him. And I'm also going to get to what's really going on right now in the country. As I got to leave you with a bit of information that's worth taking from this. So first, here's Trump on Fox News.
To be sharp. If you're in the office of the presidency, we have to be sharp. Well, they were saying all these different things. It was going all over. Whichever stuck, none of it stuck, fortunately. But one of the reasons it didn't is that I took a test. I said to the doctor, it was Dr. Ronnie Jackson, I said, is there some kind of a test, an acuity test? And he said, there actually is, and he named it, whatever it might be. And it was 30 or 35 questions. The first questions are very easy. The last questions are much more difficult. Like a memory question, it's like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. So they say, could you repeat that? So I said, yeah. So it's person, woman, man, camera, TV. Okay, that's very good. If you get it in order, you get extra points. Okay, now he's asking you other questions, and then 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes later, they say, remember the first question? Not the first, but the 10th question? Give us that again. Can you do that again? And you go person, woman, man, camera, TV. If you get it in order, you get extra points. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy. And that's not an easy question. In other words, they ask it to you, they give you 5 names and you have to repeat them, and that's okay. If you repeat them out of order, it's okay, but you know, it's not as good. But then when you go back about 20, 25 minutes later and they say, go back to that question, they don't tell you this, go back to that question and repeat them. Can you do it? And you go, person, woman, man, camera, TV. They say, that's amazing. How did you do that? I do it because I have like a good memory, because I'm cognitively there. Now, Joe should take that test.
All right. Man, this is comedy in itself. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. Wow, amazing. No one's ever done this before. No one's ever remembered that sequence of words, that 5 fucking words. No one's ever done this before. Because I'm cognitively there. So really, credit to whoever the hell this dude is here. I don't think I've seen this guy before. But credit to him for keeping a straight face throughout this entire interview. I don't know how the hell he did it. But Jesus Christ. Now, I want to show you some stuff I found online. This was shared by Sean Collins here from the Wiener's Circle. Person, woman, man, camera, TV, hot dog. That's great. Charles Booker here, who ran in Kentucky for that Senate primary race in the Democratic primary. Person, woman, man, Black Lives Matter. There you go. Now, I'm sure there are tons of people making jokes on this, but I want to just end on how brilliant Donald Trump really is. So brilliant, because he's like cognitively there. U.S. cases, daily new confirmed COVID-19 cases per million people. I will try also to squeeze this graph into more segments. As you can see how horrible the man is. This is his leadership. So, other countries here, I just grabbed some random ones. Italy, UK, France, Canada, Mexico is on the increase now. But nowhere near where the hell the U.S. has been. This is horrible. And now look, I will say I've been covering this graph for about, I think, 4 weeks now. This is the first time we are seeing a dip. But I have to say, I don't know exactly. So their source is apparently the European CDC. I'm not sure where they're getting their numbers from when it comes to the U.S. because, as I did a recent story on this, the Trump administration now has taken over control of the coronavirus data. So the CDC initially were the ones that were collecting the data and reporting it. Now Trump is. So if they're getting their official numbers from the Trump administration, I'm not sure if I completely trust them. That said, you can independently verify those numbers. Like there are still organizations and groups that are able to get the data directly from the various counties, from the various hospitals in various counties all across the U.S. So there is a way to independently verify the data. But if they're not doing that and they're just straight up relying on Trump's numbers, it just so happens right when they get Trump's numbers, the numbers come down. So I'm gonna have to do more reporting on that. It's possible these numbers are actually accurate, so I don't want to act like they're not, because I don't know. But I at least am a little skeptical. But yeah, I think it was just worth reminding people that this is what Trump's actually doing. And regardless of this test, obviously it's comedy here, but something like this, you can't just focus on Trump's ridiculous moments, because you have to really be able to communicate to people the damage that he's done. Because it's really easy for people to say, oh, whatever, Trump says crazy things, no big deal. He's an outsider, whatever. This is the damage that he causes. So this is the kind of thing you should actually reference when talking with friends and family if they're pro-Trump. This is the kind of stuff, maybe stuff they haven't been focused on as much, because their assumption is, oh, the liberal media always making fun of Trump. But no, bring out the real data. Then again, I'm hearing myself argue with myself here in my head saying, but those people aren't going to believe this data, so what's the point? I get it. But if there's something that's worth concerning yourself over, it's not necessarily Trump's brilliant intellect when it comes to a test for kids. It's this. All right. I'm seeing many super chats come in. Very cool. Let me get to those. I feel like today may be a longer stream than usual, because I do have more stories than I normally do, and there is a lot of engagement today. Junia McGraw, who I also recognize, a regular here, says, my birthday was on the 21st, David. Could you wish me a happy birthday, please? Happy birthday, Junie. Hope you had a great birthday. Andrew Dwyer says, also a regular, says, any thoughts on why Sunrise Movement is not endorsing Jen Perlman? She seems like a great progressive candidate. I don't know. I have no idea. It's possible they're just not, they don't have the awareness of every race. There are a lot of primary challenges going on, or at least that have gone on all across the U.S. So I don't know why they wouldn't endorse Jen Perlman there. I don't know. But she's a great candidate. I've done, I think, 2 interviews now with Jen, and she is a fantastic candidate. Casey Crane says, my husband and I enjoy watching your show. Thank you for all your hard work to keep us informed on the latest news. Thank you, Casey. Daniel Krieger gives me 3 alien faces. Yeah, you know what? Maybe I know people are kind of itching for that. I'll just, I read this story. So I don't have a proper breakdown of it. I just have what I know from memory. So maybe I'll just reference that in a second. Radzoso says, I'd like to give a shout out to Beau of the Fifth Column and encourage viewers to check him out. All right. I don't know him, so that is a Radzoso recommendation, but there you go. All right. Let me bring up quickly here So this is a New York Times report. Now, because New York Times paywalls everything, peak 2020 is paywalling a story on the government having UFO materials. Like, it's kind of an important story, but luckily we have other publications reporting on it. So this is from Popular Mechanics. Pentagon has off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. So this is an extension, I guess, of the initial story that had come out months ago now, maybe even a year ago when this first became public. But that the military has video of UFOs. They as in unidentified flying objects. They don't exactly know what they are. They could be from different planets. They could be from different countries, and they aren't aware of the technology. But they released it, and stuff they couldn't explain happening on camera. And now, apparently, they are admitting that they do, in fact, have in their possession materials from off-planet, I think their exact quote, which I'll get to in a minute, off-planet vehicles. So let me read a bit here. So a new report in the New York Times confirms those accounts. The government's UFO unit currently resides in the Office of Naval Intelligence, where it deals with classified matters per the report, even though the unit itself isn't classified. The Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force is meant to standardize collection and reporting on sightings and UAVs and publicly divulge at least some of its findings twice a year, according to the Times. So let me get to the juicy part here. I think it's under this. Harry Reid, the former Nevada senator who was instrumental in funding the original UFO program, told the Times he believes that crashes from other worlds had occurred and that retrieved materials had been studied secretly for decades, often by aerospace companies under government contracts. From the article, quote, after looking into this, I came to the conclusion that there were reports, some were substantive, some not so substantive, that there were actual materials that the government and the private sector had in their possession. The private sector? Military contractors, possibly? The astrophysicist Eric Davis, who consulted with the Pentagon's original UFO program, told the Times that after he examined certain materials, he came to the conclusion that, quote, we couldn't make them ourselves. In fact, Davis briefed a Department of Defense DoD agency as recently as March about receiving materials from off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. This is a New York Times report. This is an astrophysicist. We got Harry Reid, former senator. This is legit. So, I would like to see what these materials are. I would like a little more information. They don't have that yet. We just know of their existence. But maybe we'll get some. It would be awesome to see some video, some images, something of what these materials are and why they are confident that we cannot produce it ourselves. So that is really interesting. Hopefully we do see more. You can really find the story anywhere. This is Popular Mechanics, but if you just search up off-world vehicles, you will find it. You will find various takes on this story. But pretty crazy stuff. Pretty crazy stuff. Look, me personally, I've always believed. I've watched enough space documentaries to understand how massive the universe is, how many planets there are. We have like galaxies. So there is so much that we do not know about just our universe. Then you get into conversations about a multiverse and, forget about it. So we are so tiny, so tiny in the grand scheme of things of how massive the universe is. All data points to there definitely, most likely being other worlds where intelligent life exists. In fact, there's a recent story on that. I forget their exact number, but I think it's something around they believe there's about 70. Their estimations based on their calculations that there's probably around 70 planets that have intelligent life. So this not all that crazy if you think about the chances of it. So there you go. Hopefully, if the aliens see this, we're your friends. Don't hurt us. Maybe just give us some of your technology and, be on your merry way. But pretty crazy stuff. So there you go. Is everyone in the chat freaking out now? What a crazy story. Man. I don't know. All right. Let me grab some of these chats and I'll get to the next story here. Tony Parker with the great comment here. Who's going to buy the houses, Ben? Referring to a video I posted today from my Twitch stream where I show Ben Shapiro talking about how, if your house in Florida is flooded, all you got to do is sell your home. Like, people are going to buy a home that's underwater. And that's, I mean, it's an old clip, but I referenced it in my video when he was on, discussing when he was on Joe Rogan. Just because, like, once you see arguments that ridiculous, you don't have to engage that person anymore. You can stop treating them like a serious thinker. You can move on, figure this person's out of their mind, just move on to somebody else. Because clearly, that is not a way to deal with climate change. Selling your home that's underwater. As H. Bomber Guy would say, sell your houses to who, Ben? Fucking Aquaman. Yeah. Rob Bidgood says Romney Trust Act equals Social Security cut. I do not know what this is about. Romney has a proposed bill that has a Social Security cut. I will, actually, I'm going to get to a Social Security thing and Trump in a second. That deals with my PolitiFact story. I'm not sure how soon that story is coming out, but that is something I'm talking about today. Owen Gobo says, my Trump buddy, already we're off to a good start here. My Trump buddy says that the CDC has COVID vaccine patent, and that's why Trump does the numbers, not CDC. What? You can't rationalize with some people. It's I mean, he must have heard that from, like, I don't know, Alex Jones, somebody in that world, I guess. All you can do is laugh. What you can do, though, to those people, the ones that don't wear masks, Juvan Miranda brought this up, and I've seen other people suggest this, that if there's somebody in your life who doesn't want to wear a mask because, you know, the government, tell them that if you wear a mask, you can hide your face from all the cameras watching you, and then the government can't keep track of you. So, if you don't want to wear a mask for health reasons, because you, I don't know, don't think it helps or whatever, then wear it to protect yourself from all the cameras that are watching you at all times. And really, that isn't even all that far-fetched. I mean, there's some truth to that. But that can work on the conspiratorial mindset of some of these individuals. Christian Veneman says, I'm surprised the aliens haven't decided to steer clear of our stupidity. You know what? They probably did try, and then they ended up crashing. Which also, that leads me to another question. If they discovered materials from an off-planet vehicle, were the aliens in there too? Did they find bodies? Or was it just materials, whatever that means? A downed vehicle, I'm guessing. Because I don't know how else they would just find random alien materials if it didn't crash. But we will pause there, I think. We'll pause there, but some good chats coming up too, as I can see in the preview. All right. Now we get to the real stories. 40 minutes in. Next up, as you will see, a Stephen Miller story. I often don't talk too much about. He doesn't. I don't think he's really on camera all that often anymore. As he's, I mean, if you're trying to sell people on Donald Trump, I'm not sure Stephen Miller is gonna do the trick. But he was recently on Tucker, and we will get into this. All right. Cool. Trump senior advisor Stephen Miller was recently on Fox News with Tucker Carlson, and he was essentially cheering on lawlessness. So he's on here discussing what's happening in Portland. I've done a number of videos on this, from the people being just snatched up off the street by federal officers, put into unmarked vans and driving off. The insanity of that, not being told why they're taken, nothing, just taking them and leaving. Clearly, it's illegal. You also have, as I'm going to get to as well, moms that were tear gassed. But here is Stephen Miller on Fox News defending all of it.
Families. And we've stood up to that, and this president has stood up to that. But let me tell you about Portland. You have 100 brave DHS officers standing up against that lawless mob. They should be celebrated. They should be celebrated as heroes. A number of them have been injured. 16 families.
Celebrated as heroes while they are breaking the law, while they are infringing on people's constitutional right to protest. Or in many cases, not even protesting. People just literally walking down the street and they happen to be wearing black clothing and they're taken into an unmarked van and driven off. So that is fascism. The federal government coming into a city, occupying that city, shooting citizens with whether it's rubber bullets or tear gas, putting them into vans and driving off, snatching them off the street. That's fascism. And Stephen Miller here saying that those federal officers should be celebrated. Now, let me show you, as I alluded to earlier, this is what's been happening. Trump sent cops to Portland and they're kidnapping people off the streets. Camouflaged federal officers have been patrolling the streets, pulling protesters into unmarked cars and arresting them. So I have a fuller breakdown on this story in particular that I did, I believe, last week. But the news moves so fast, I don't even know at this point. But this is happening in Portland, and there's a story that came out from Ken Klippenstein in The Nation discussing how the CPP has actually been in conversation with police forces around the country in terms of surveillance and using drones to watch over protesters and spy on people. So that's the first part of it, and then of course the second part is when these federal officers actually go into these cities, and there have been several threats now that that's going to happen. That what's happening in Portland is going to be expanded to other cities as well. And you also saw this showing you who's on the right side of the issue here. Rolling Stone, the story from the administration that brought you kids in cages. It's tear-gassed moms. Another one I covered yesterday now. Man, time moves by very fast. But I covered this yesterday. You had these moms here at the front of the line with the assumption being, again, this is a peaceful protest. The assumption here being that, oh, you're going to have moms up front. What are they going to do? Are they really going to tear gas the moms? Well, yes. Yes, they are. That's what they did. Yet you have the administration defending this, of course, because they're the ones that administered this. They're the ones that brought these officers in to these cities. So understand what a Trump administration is. Understand what it does. It is fascism. This is the beginning of it. This is 4 years in. Do you really want to see what this looks like in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, in 4 years? So this is what you're up against. I think it's important that people are aware of that and understand how much of a threat he is. While some people are going to focus, solely on Trump talking about his brilliant intellect and passing a test for kids and saying other dumb things in a Fox News interview. While those things, yes, are worth talking about, this is where the real focus should be. This is where all of us, all citizens, everybody should understand how severe this is and how much worse it can get. All right. This next story I'm really looking forward to. It's it shows you got to be aware of fact checkers. Before I get there, though, a lot of chats today. Really cool. Glad to see the support. Where did I stop? Stopped here. Player 2. No one's going to get this reference, but I'll do the voice. I agree with that. If you know what that's from, there is a hilarious cartoon. Maybe I can find it now. Hilarious YouTube channel that does cartoons. They did one. They do like a lot of political cartoons. They did one on what are they called? Here we go. Freedom Tunes. I'm not going to play their video here because you got to check them out. But they did one on, here it is, Freedom Tunes. They did one when on Dave Rubin's show, and Ben Shapiro, and anyways, that's Dave Rubin's voice in that cartoon. It is, their work is fantastic. Am I even up? I don't think I am. Here we go. Freedom Tunes. Their work is fantastic. So check them out. Look, they had a recent one on, yeah. So I think they put out cartoons every week. More Ben Shapiro stuff. Really cool. All right, so check them out. Back to chats. Darcy Jones says CBS this morning just did a feature on a renowned street photographer, Andre Wagner, on being a black photographer during the strife. Wanted to shout it out. It's on their Twitter, not letting me link. All right, so if you look up CBS, maybe I can find it quickly for you. But I imagine, yeah, YouTube doesn't allow links, which I guess is good and bad. There we go. Cool. So yes, I definitely can't play this, but they have a YouTube link? No. There you go. So yeah, just look up photographer Andre D. Wagner, and I guess check it out. I have not seen it, but I trust Darcy Jones. All right. Oh, here you go. I keep forgetting I'm not up. There. This thing on the left says, if aliens ever came to this planet, they would look at us and see we are not worth interacting with at all. This reminds me of the Stargate series. I never got into Stargate, but I've heard good things. But yeah, you know what? If aliens are smart enough to be able to visit other planets, look, my hope would be, and I guess we know they are because we have this material now from a alien craft. But my hope would be is that they would just leave us alone, because this is the approach that we have to other planets as well, even ones in our solar system that we know don't have any life right now. But I was watching a space documentary, and they purposely flew one of their satellites that was orbiting, I think it was Saturn. They purposely flew it into Saturn, knowing it would break up upon entry. Even Saturn, I don't even think has like a solid core, but they purposely destroyed their satellite because they were afraid that it may fall into one of their moons, one of the moons around Saturn, and they didn't want it to interfere with the natural, I guess, evolution of that moon. So hopefully the aliens have the same approach. Just come and take a peek. Try not to crash your alien crafts into our planet next time, but come take a peek and just go away. Rob Bidgood says Romney is trying to sneak Trust Act into the next stimulus package. I'm seeing, is that the same? Yeah, the same super chat, same guy. All right, Rob, I don't know. I'll have to look in this later. I can't do on the fly researching, but there you go. Romney is trying to sneak his Trust Act into the stimulus. Adam Bryceland says, I think AOC should run in 2024. How about you? I'm open to it. I mean, you're going to have to see what that looks like, right? Got to see who the VP is. Whoever. I mean, it's not going to be somebody good. So I guess there's no real downside to a primary challenge. Even if that person's not going to win, it likely would pull whoever the VP is to the left. So let's say it's Kamala Harris is Biden's VP, and I imagine he'll be picking somebody soon. Probably next week or the week after, publicly anyways. He likely already picked them. But let's say it's Kamala Harris. Giving her a primary challenge, having somebody challenge her from the left in 2024, even if that person's not going to win, because it's going to be hard to beat somebody who's the vice president. It's worth doing that challenge, at the very least, to pull that person to the left on some issues. So, I mean, you just saw, God, if it is Kamala Harris, you just saw her vote against, I did a video on this, her vote against cutting the Pentagon budget by 10%, which already is, 10% is nothing. It would have left the Pentagon with more money than it had when Trump came in. So Trump increased the budget so much that cutting 10% is like cutting nothing. But Kamala Harris even voted against that, making me think that she, in fact, might be the VP pick if she's making moves like that. So we're going to see. But you have to challenge those people. You have to bring the fight to them and understand that the fight only really starts once they have power. Like Biden campaigning right now, sure, you can try and pull him left, but he has no reason to when right now he's coasting in these polls. Like he's leading by 15 points, 10 points, 8 points, 20 points. He's not going to do anything that he thinks, the campaign thinks, may risk his chances. Even though I don't think it would risk his chances, but they would think it would risk his chances to become more left. But the real fight starts when he has power. That's when, I mean, I'm looking forward to Trump being out of the picture. Let's hope that happens. But if he's out of the picture, I'm looking forward to 4 years of being pissed off at Democrats. I think that's a conversation I rather have, because you're having a conversation at that point where you can bring rational people, viewers, to your side and grow the movement and get people out in the streets and bring Biden's poll numbers down to the point where he feels like he has to react and do something. So, not poll numbers, his approval numbers. So you have to understand that's when the fight starts. And you see what Bernie did in 2011, when I think it was 2011, when Obama was trying to cut Social Security. Bernie Sanders was out there publicly fighting Barack Obama on that, because Bernie understood the guy with the power is Barack Obama. Just like right now, Bernie understands the guy with the power is Donald Trump. So you're not going to see Bernie do too much or be too negative against Biden right now, when the focus for these politicians is to get out Donald Trump. But then once that happens, if that happens, then that's when the whole game shifts and the focus becomes Biden in the White House and pushing him on issues. Okay, maybe I should stop there. I'm going off on these tangents. These are all great chats, though. All right, I will pause there on the chats. I'll get back to them. I'm going to prep this next story, which is the PolitiFact story. It's probably going to be a quick one, because I'm not really sure what else to add to this. It kind of speaks for itself. So I want to show you a little piece of information that should make you a little skeptical of fact checkers. So you often see these fact checkers online. Oh, this was fact check, it was wrong. This was fact check, it was right. I've done videos on the Washington Post fact checker and their absurdity when it came to Bernie Sanders and claims like him making, or Bernie Sanders saying that 500,000 people a year go bankrupt over medical costs, which is an accurate claim. But the way that Washington Post tried to frame it, they tried to make it seem like Bernie was lying when he wasn't, and Washington Post themselves had actually reported that number months before their fact check claimed Bernie was lying about it. But that's one example. Let me show you an example now when it comes to PolitiFact and Donald Trump. So right here, Donald Trump said, quote, "I'm not going to cut Social Security like every other Republican, and I'm not going to cut Medicare and Medicaid." Now you go down to the, I don't know why it's not loading properly, but the Truthometer, there you go. The Truthometer here, promise kept. Promise kept. Oh, that makes it sound like Donald Trump said he would not cut Social Security, and he didn't. He kept his promise. Except if you read into the details, Trump's actions very well should have earned him a promise broken. He tried multiple times to break his own promise. But our promise meters, often to the dismay of our readers, are about outcomes. This is ridiculous. We've gotten complaints over the years about promises that couldn't happen because they were blocked by Congress, but we repeatedly rated them on the outcome. That's a little different. But in this case, a promise broken rating would suggest that seniors had their Social Security benefits cut, but that isn't the case. But it also suggests, promise kept also suggests that Trump didn't try to cut it when he did. So they say here, that's because Congress stopped Trump from breaking his own promise. So the only reason that Social Security was not cut is because Congress stopped him. He tried to cut it. Yet this is a promise kept because Congress stopped him. So whenever you see these fact checkers, look, a lot of them often are accurate. I'm not saying that they're always wrong. They often are accurate. But you really have to dive into the details and understand that, look, this is not anything to give Trump praise over. Oh, promise kept. He did not cut Social Security when he tried at least three times to cut it. So just a little, FYI out there, so you all realize to dig a little deeper into some of these fact checks. Back to super chats. This is where the fun is. I'm actually enjoying the conversations going all over the place. Where was I? GoHabs89 says Corona has a 7.5% mortality rate in USA. Wow. I don't know the exact figure, so I cannot verify that 7.5%. But last I saw, I believe they're in the top 5. So the UK has like a really high mortality rate, like extraordinarily high mortality rate. And then you have Brazil. Actually, I think Brazil's behind the US. But you have other countries up there, and then the U.S. is around 4th or 5th in mortality rate. So, look, it's not good. And the thing is, you can't just focus on mortality, because what we're seeing now, at least what's being reported, is that the coronavirus is having long-term impacts on people. So even if you have like a mild case and you get over it pretty quickly, or you think you get over it pretty quickly, it can have a long-lasting impact on your health and can actually cut your life expectancy. So for Trump to focus just on the mortality rate, which is what he's trying to do to downplay how horrible the numbers are, as I showed you earlier, a graph that I'm sure I'll bring up again at some point. But you have to understand, it's not just about mortality. It's about people getting the coronavirus and the long-term impacts that'll have on many of those people. Mark Keister says, if you can, please find time to interview Adam Christensen, Florida's 3rd District. It would be nice to have a real progressive takeover of Yoho's vacated seat. I don't do many interviews with people in primaries. Sometimes I do. What I want to do, I don't know. It's a tough thing because it's often just, I'm going to agree with everything the person says. Like if I'm going to interview somebody, it's basically to platform them. So I might as well just do a video on that person's campaign as opposed to doing an interview, which honestly, most people kind of know what to expect from a lot of these candidates if I'm talking about them. Most of these people that are people that I would support issues like Medicare for all, canceling student debt, free college, go down the list. So I'm more inclined to cover his race, as opposed to interviewing the person. But I do want to do more interviews with people that are maybe public intellectuals, authors, writers, that kind of thing. Other commentators as well. But I'm not sure how many I'll do with candidates. Junior McGrath says, threat of America becoming more social, democratic, right? Wait, what? In brackets, threat of America becoming more socially democratic. Right-wingers, no, that's socialism. In brackets, threat of American becoming a fascist state. Right-wingers, hey man, just follow the rules. Yeah. Their arguments are rarely ever honest. Like, I want to see an honest conservative, someone that is out there and just saying, you know what? I think capitalism is awesome. I think it's great that people are born into families that are already poor, that have no opportunities or little opportunity. And I think it's perfectly fine for that to happen, to not help those people, and for people that were born into wealth, for them to be able to continue that wealth and amass that wealth and be able to basically retain all the money in the top 5%, or even really just 1%, top 0.1% of the country. Like, if conservatives come out and we're just honest about what their ideology actually is, hey, I'm backed by a billionaire. Like if Ben Shapiro came out, hey guys, I'm backed by a billionaire, and he tells me it's really good that when our taxes are lowered, and it really benefits him, so I support that. Then cool, you're honest. But the problem is these conservatives are never honest about their positions. They're never honest about what their mentality, what capitalism has actually done to the lives of millions. So, I mean, you see the inequality. It's insane. They'll point to, but you have an iPhone now. You got an iPhone, doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean that there's no inequality. The gap between the rich and the poor has continued to widen. That's what matters. That's what you need to focus on. Look at wages and how they barely moved over 30 years. Like, that's what you actually have to look on. Look at life expectancy. You can't point to an iPhone and think everything's great. It's about the damage that capitalism has done to society. All right. I'm going to pause there. Next story. Which I have to prep. So there is a new Fox News poll out, and I got to share the result here. It's pretty much what we've been seeing for a couple months now. You see here, Fox News poll from July 18th to 20th. Pennsylvania, Biden up by 11 points, 50-39. Minnesota, Biden up by 13 points, 51-38. And Michigan, Biden up by 9 points, 49-40. Trump is in a real hole right now. And this is the kind of hole that is not just temporary. Now, of course, yes, things can change. Miracles can happen. But by and large, you look at the impact that the coronavirus has had on millions of Americans. You look at the numbers. Maybe I'll bring up, I didn't plan this here, but maybe I'll bring up the numbers right now compared to other countries. You look at something like this, where clearly there's a difference here between the U.S. and other countries. This is daily new confirmed COVID-19 cases per million people, the rolling 7-day average. Now, recently it's come down a little bit, so yay, it's coming down. But look at the friggin' gap here. You got Mexico, Canada, France, the UK, Italy. I always link to these sources below the video, so when I cut this out of the live stream later, you can check it out yourself. But you can add countries to this. I think Brazil comes close to where the US is. In fact, I'll show you right now. Because guess what? Brazil also run by a neo-fascist. So you got two far-right leaders here. And, wow, they're back up. Jesus. So, two neo-fascists right here. This is what they get you. Because they don't actually care about people. And Americans are beginning to recognize that, including in very important swing states. So not even just nationally, which I will show you here, but also in those swing states. This is the Real Clear Politics poll average. This is actually kind of lowballing it. 8.7. But I mean, you see here, fine, 8.7 nationally. If you go back to 2016, Hillary's lead over Trump was only ever around 2 to 4 points on average. Having leads like this on a consistent basis was not what was happening in 2016. People want to pretend, oh, but Hillary in 2016, she was leading. Yeah, but not with these margins. So there is a difference here. And by the way, the polling was not off in 2016. The way it was reported on was off. So people were reporting on it like Hillary definitely has this, even though she's only up by 2 to 4 points. And she still won the popular vote by about 2 to 4 points. So she still won based within what the polling was suggesting. But when it came to the swing states, that's where the margin of error went directly in Trump's favor in all the swing states. So that's where she had a problem. But again, she was only up in those states around 2 to 4 points. You take a look here at some of these battleground states. Let's check out Wisconsin. Biden, on average, up by 6. And we can go through it. I mean, I think he's up in Florida as well, which is, a red state. Biden up by 7 in Florida on average. A recent Quinnipiac poll has him up by 13 in Florida. So we're talking about Florida's a red state. It is a deeply red state. You got Miami there, but for the most part, Florida's a red state, and Biden is just dominating. I mean, I think Arizona, he may even be leading in Arizona as well. And Texas is also really close. So Biden's leading in Arizona by 2.8 points. I'm not sure if they have, I don't see Texas here, but actually maybe we can get Texas down here. See what Texas looks like. This one's going to be a lot closer. Trump likely in the lead. We will see. Oh my God. Trump on average is leading, but only by 0.2 points in Texas. And Biden doesn't have the Latino support that Bernie Sanders had. So imagine Bernie. Not to get to a side conversation here, but Bernie would be leading in Texas right now. But it's really close with Biden in Texas. So look, this is my only worry right now with this election. I don't trust the Trump administration to have a fair election. When it comes to voter suppression, when it comes to trying to play some tricks afterwards, after he loses, they're going to try something. You already see Trump in interviews talk about basically discussing how he thinks the election is going to be rigged by mail-in voting. So who knows what they're going to do with that. So that is where my worry is, meaning you have to overwhelm the vote. And I understand Biden is not a good candidate. Anybody with half a brain knows that Biden is not somebody you really want running the country. But he ain't a fascist. And when you're looking at who you want to fight, who would you rather fight? Trump, who's not going to be in the ring with you. We've seen over the past 4 years, he doesn't listen to the left at all. In fact, he brings out federal officers to kidnap people into unmarked vans. Or do you want to fight Joe Biden, who, yes, is still going to fight you on the issues, doesn't want to pass things like Medicare for all, but guess what? He's in the ring with you. And if you're out there protesting on Washington and you're bringing his approval numbers down, Biden's going to have to react. He's going to have to do something. So this is why I'm excited about the idea of Biden being president. Not because I'm excited about him, but I'm excited about the kind of movement that could be used against him to put pressure on him to do something. So you got to think about the fight that way. You're not picking who you like. You're picking which fighter you want to go up against. And in that case, you have to overwhelm the vote because you know the Trump administration is going to try and pull something. All right. Grab some chats here. I think what's next here? The Ben Shapiro story's next. I'm looking forward to that one. But let me get to some chats first. Car Wash Freak 97. Lots of regulars here today. Really cool. Says, people need to vote. We can't afford to mess up. Yep. Buddy Nair says, check out Chomsky's take on democracy now today. Says Trump regime, not fascism, as no coherent policy. Compares to tin pot dictatorship. Well, that's a fair point. But I would push back a little bit. Yes, I agree. There's no coherent policy necessarily, but in terms of the actions that he is taking, you have federal officers in the streets occupying Portland. That's not normal. Taking people into unmarked vans, not telling them why they're being arrested, not saying anything at all, not even having any labels, not even identifying themselves. That's not okay. So regardless of what you label it as, it clearly is a step above what's been going on or what's happened over the course of history, recently anyways. Embled Fate says, you're going to go back on Jimmy's to re-debate Biden versus Trump. I think it would be an interesting discussion now that the prophecy has come true. It is funny that conversation was a year ago. Because I didn't expect Biden to win the primary. But the fact that he did, look, it kind of goes against the argument that some people have been making, saying that, hey, if Biden, if Bernie wins if Trump wins in 2016, then that means Bernie's going to win, or Bernie's going to be the nominee in 2020. It'll push everyone left. That didn't happen. What actually happened is that everybody's standards became lowered. The bar lowered to the point where Joe Biden is an acceptable president. That's what actually happened. So, former years of Trump, Tom Cotton's going to be acceptable. Chris Coons is going to be acceptable. So you have to understand, in terms of the general public, the kind of impact Trump has had. But I don't know. For me, it's about, would it be beneficial? Because I don't want it to be just attacking each other, because I don't think that really is beneficial. But if we get to make our arguments in a clear and concise manner, and it's not a shouting match, not that Jimmy is, but some people on that show who got angry at me last time, that's what I want to make sure it's actually a beneficial discussion, and we get to hash out those differences. But I don't know. I'm open to it, I guess. Skank Hunt 42 says, if anyone wants to show support for the protest but can't go, there are a bunch of bail funds out there. Michael Moore just made a new one. There's always funds to help people bail out. Yeah. Thank you, Skank Hunt. Lorenz 42. I'm not exactly sure what that name is, but I think it's Lorenz or Lorenzo. Says, always enjoy your streams. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ravi Parimi says, but Trump has seen other big leap polls where he is leading Biden by numbers that nobody has ever seen before. Yeah, it's Trump in that Fox News interview. They're fake polls. They're all fake polls. Hilarious. Like the idea that Trump's attacking Fox News for not being kind enough to him. Jesus. I mean, he really needs just full on people just kissing his feet. I guess that's what the OAN, whatever it is, network is. That's what they do for him. Just kiss his feet 24/7. Somebody made this, I think it was Vosh, who's pretty good, by the way. I like Vosh. Made the point that, I think it was him. In terms of media, or maybe this was Kyle Klinsky, I don't know. Somebody made this point where in terms of media, if you go far left, what's happening on the far left is we criticize Democrats. We criticize leaders. We criticize people who, are supposed to be progressive or democratic socialists or social democrats. We criticize those people to make them better. On the right, in right-wing media, what they do is they kiss the feet of their leaders. So you see the move towards authoritarianism on the right. That's what they go towards. On the left, it's more towards actually criticizing people and or leaders and ensuring there are actual debates based in reality going on. So it really amazes me that this stuff isn't just obvious, that you have people fall into a hole where they think they're being told the correct information when they're watching OAN, when all they're doing is just kissing the feet of the authoritarian. And don't people realize at some point that, hey, why don't they ever question Trump? Why do they love everything he does all the time? Like, even I would criticize Bernie at times. He has bad positions, like on BDS, for example. So we criticize our leaders on the left. They don't do it on the right. Something to be aware of. Okay, let me stop there so I can prep the next story here. This is a longer stream than usual, at least in recent memory. During the primary, I had some like 3-hour streams. I don't know how they even got that long. But recently I feel like, I don't know, maybe the news has been a little negative. I wanted to cover too much on Fridays, but we got, I think we have a pretty good show today. I would say better than usual based on the content that I'm covering today. I just got to prep this next one. I should do more of these. I really enjoy covering these frauds. It's fun. Whether it's Rubin, Shapiro. I used to do a lot more of this. I don't know why I stopped. I think I just got tired of it, but no, these people are worth covering. Ben Shapiro was on Fox News talking about Trump's response to the coronavirus. Now, I'm going to show you this clip, and I also have another clip later to kind of get you into understanding Ben Shapiro's thinking and why he is willing to say something this stupid. Watch.
I think that if the answers were all that obvious, then they would be applied. I mean, the fact is everybody's trying to deal with an unprecedented situation. I think President Trump's response in terms of his actual policy has been very good. I think the media have been attempting to focus in on his rhetoric a lot more than they've been focusing in on his policy. If you focused in on his policy, what you'd see is people like Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo mentioning that Trump gave them the resources they needed when they needed them. The fact that this has become political as opposed to just a question of let's all do the best we can to get back to a functioning economy and a functioning life in America while stopping the pandemic. The fact that this has become political is just an indication as to how loose our moorings are in terms of national unity.
This is so dumb. This is so dumb. First of all, become political. How is a conversation about what the president does or doesn't do? How can that not become political? Of course it's political. It's a discussion about policy. He says here, President Trump's response in terms of his actual policy. Wait, let me properly quote him. President Trump's response in terms of his actual policy has been very good. Oh, very good. Very good, has it? Let's take a look at the freaking graph. Very good. This is very good. Daily new confirmed COVID-19 cases per million people, rolling 7-day average. Very good. Very good, Trump. See, USA, number one, up here with the most cases. Massive gap here. Mexico, Canada, France, UK, Italy. You can add any country to this. The only country that comes even close to the US in numbers is Brazil. I think India is not doing well either. Countries run by authoritarians. Just so happens. This is the result of Donald Trump's very good policy. What's the policy? He doesn't even bring anything up. Very good. Trump, very good policy. Doesn't even say anything. Doesn't mention a thing. If we go over the different ways that Trump screwed up. Financial help. What, a one-time check? If you were even able to get that one-time check, many Americans couldn't. But what, a one-time check? Try comparing that to other countries that either have a paycheck guarantee that was, by the way, introduced by Pramila Jayapal in the House, a Democrat, rejected by both Nancy Pelosi and Trump. But paycheck protection, UBI or quasi-UBI in other countries, Canada has $2,000 a month. If you lost your job or got to stay home, take care of your kids or whatever, if you're impacted by the coronavirus and you can't work, you get $2,000 a month. Many countries have very similar policies. Yet when you don't give anybody any financial help, this is what happens. They feel the need to go out more and have to make money. They have to go back to work because what else can they do? So when people are given just those two options of either staying home and going out to work, and they are not told about a third option that they could be given in terms of actual financial help, this is the result of it. People feel the need, they have to go out and go to work, and they get the coronavirus. So financial help, nothing. Healthcare, where? What's happening in the US with healthcare? Medicare for all? No. Coverage of healthcare costs for the coronavirus? No. In fact, if you're uninsured and you get the coronavirus, it can cost you up to $70,000. That's the American healthcare system. In Canada, completely covered. In other countries with single-payer healthcare, completely covered. And not even to mention, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into healthcare here, but having your healthcare tied to your employer, meaning that if you lost your job as an American, you also lost your healthcare. What kind of insane healthcare system is this? Why would you tie your healthcare to your employer? How stupid of a system is this? And yes, it's both the fault of Democrats and Republicans. It is a dumb system. In a single-payer system, which what Medicare for all would be, which is what Canada has, a single-payer system, you lose your job, you still have healthcare, same doctor, same everything, because it's completely separate from your employer. You can leave your job, you can start a new business, go back to school, you still have the same healthcare because it is guaranteed to you. And when it comes to cost, nothing. Single payer, it's free at the point of use. And at the same time, under a single payer system, guess what? The wealthiest people in the country and your Congress people would be on the same healthcare plan as you are. How bad is it really going to get if your Congress people and the billionaires in the country have the same healthcare plan as you do? So healthcare, Trump, nothing. Mask mandate or even encouragement, nothing till last week. I think last week or the week before he wore a mask finally. The first time. He could have been doing that and encouraging that from the start. And I hear a lot of people, a lot of Americans say, oh, there was a lot of misinformation about masks at the beginning. Isn't it kind of common knowledge that you wear a mask, you protect yourself at least somewhat? I mean, why do surgeons wear masks? Why do doctors wear masks? Well, before the coronavirus. Why were they wearing masks? They didn't need to. They wore masks because it keeps the germs out. It keeps their germs from going out. So obviously, a mask would do something, regardless of what you were being told at the beginning. The whole point of discouraging certain mask use was so that you would not wear a medical mask. So the N95 masks had to be kept for the medical professionals. That's it. But I know at least in Canada, there was always talk of course, masks are going to help. They're not going to be 100%, but yes, they're going to help. A cloth mask is going to help because it prevents the germs from going out. It obviously would help from stopping the virus going to more people. Yet, on the mask thing, also a total failure from Donald Trump. So what policy exactly was he doing to help people? Now, let me go to a video that may actually help you understand why Ben Shapiro thinks the way he thinks.
Okay, there's only one problem. Okay, empathy is actually kind of bad for politics. The reason that empathy is bad for politics is because it leads you to empathize with people that you are more likely to like, as opposed to people you don't like. Okay, so first of all, the pitch for empathy is actually, there have been several books that are written on this, social science books, talking about how empathy is not actually the best thing for politics. It actually almost deactivates the reasoning centers of your brain. Because when you're empathetic, you don't actually create good policy. This doesn't mean that feeling sympathy for people is a bad thing. It means that if empathy is what drives your policy making, you're probably not acting in a rational fashion. But the real goal here is, of course, not to generate empathy. The real goal here is to suggest that if you disagree with the idea that America is systemically and institutionally racist, you are not an empathetic person, and therefore you're a bad, cruel, and callous person.
All right. Empathy is bad for politics. That's the Ben Shapiro view. As several people, including Emma Vigeland, pointed out on Twitter, Ben Shapiro is essentially pro-sociopath. That's what he's saying. Don't be empathetic in your politics, meaning don't care about people when you're reforming policy. How does that make any sense? So I'm going to reference Michael Brooks here for a second. He was an incredible left-wing commentator. He recently died suddenly. His quote here sums up exactly how I feel about what directs my politics. So his quote is, "There is no democracy. There is no functioning citizenship. There is no basic humanity while there is hunger." There is no democracy while there is hunger. How can empathy not drive your politics? What's the point of the government then? People born into situations that they have no control over. They're born poor, born into the wrong zip code, have no opportunities. How do you not feel for those people? How does that not drive you? So when you understand where his politics comes from, you understand why he's a rotten person, why he is the way he is. And also, of course, empathy is bad for his billionaire backers. Ben Shapiro is backed by billionaires. So if you have to care about other people, if you have to direct funds to individuals that need help, if you need, say, a Medicare for all system or a way to ensure nobody goes hungry, that requires some equality in society. That requires doing something about the immense inequality, which in turn would lead to his billionaire backers having less money. So when you see right-wing commentators like this, understand what motivates them. They're backed by billionaires. There's no one on the left backed by a billionaire, on the actual left. We fight for higher taxes on the wealthy. We fight to get rid of billionaires. Billionaires should not exist as long as there are people hungry in the streets. So who the hell would give us money? We fight from a place of empathy, of trying to make a better society. These idiots are motivated by cash. And honestly, this may be the most revealing clip that we've ever seen of Ben Shapiro. This is what he's about. All right. I feel like my neighbors probably heard me. I don't think I've gotten that angry in a while. People like that, man, they're fucking disgusting. Fucking disgusting people. All right, where was I? Harry C. Smith. Hold up. Yeah. Harry C. Smith says, NCOV 2019 Live is the best source for COVID stats worldwide in real time. Love from Melbourne, where masks became mandatory in public from yesterday. Yeah, I was looking at the... I don't have it here, but I was looking at the Australia stats, and it's a bit of an increase. In cases. So glad you guys are doing something about that. But there you go. NCOV, COV 2019.live is apparently the best source for COVID stats. Donna DeCasa says, subbed when you lost your shit on Howard Schultz. Love Rational National. Oh my God, I forgot about Howard Schultz. Yeah. Was that this year? Or was that last year? I forget. I think that was last year. Yeah, it was last year. Yeah, because Howard wasn't part of the conversation this year. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think I lost my shit on him. When it comes to people in positions of power, look, let me bring up another Michael Brooks quote here. His philosophy. Be empathetic towards humans, be ruthless to institutions. So when it comes to, the common human, people that may have fallen into the wrong hole, fallen down the wrong, YouTube hole. How many people have done that? There are people I know that don't watch political stuff, but they always get suggested, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin. It's gross how many people likely fell down into conservative ideology just based on that. But don't get angry at those people. It's not somebody's fault. Like, even when it comes to, say, like landlords. A lot of landlords are just, hey, they were born fairly well off, or they were able to get to a point where they can own property and they rent it out, and they don't really think of themselves as, hey, this is awesome, I'm a capitalist and we're screwing over people. Like, that's not how, that isn't how they operate. But be ruthless towards the institutions. So you win people over by being empathetic, by understanding their situation and getting to them that way. But when it comes to people in positions of power, like Schultz, like Ben Shapiro, like Jeff Bezos, you can be pissed off at them, definitely. At the very least, like, mock them, ensure that they are not respected in society. But at the same time, be ruthless to the institutions that allow that kind of system to continue. And be ruthless towards capitalism that has allowed that kind of wealth to be amassed while there are people that go hungry in the streets. So that's the approach that I'm going to try to live by a little more now. It can be easy to fall into the Twitter pylon trap sometimes. Because look, there are people that say dumb things. Some people sometimes. You know what? Let me give you an example right now. Since we're on the topic, I was gonna show you something I was gonna cover later, but this. Let me give you an example. So, right here, Chloe Thibault here, who reporter in Maine, like a local news reporter, has 1,000 followers. This person has no power, but she tweeted out this story that I assume she did here. We all need a pick-me-up story these days. So this morning I'm introducing you to born and raised Mainer Jackie Hart. She's 84 years old and just got hired as a housekeeper at a motel in Southwest Harbor. So Chloe here is showcasing this story as like a feel-good story. This is an 84-year-old. 84-year-old that has to go back to work. This exposes how gross the system is. This is not a heartfelt story. But a lot of people here went after Chloe. Chloe's not the problem. I don't want to, some of the people I like. I'm not going to go after them. Because again, be empathetic towards the humans. So, but it's not Chloe's fault. I went to college with people like this that were in journalism, and this is what they're taught, guys. This is how they're educated. Especially like local news. This is what you learn. You learn a certain formula. And these kinds of stories fit into that formula of a feel-good story. Here's a nice old lady, has a job, working as a maid, a housekeeper. It's a feel-good story in the sense of how local news normally operates. They don't have, the Marxist view of society. You can't expect Chloe Thibault of Maine, local reporter, to understand, the bourgeoisie and like the constant battle. Like that's not. She's not at fault here. It's the institution that educates people this way. So when that doesn't mean you don't, that doesn't mean you ignore the tweet or ignore her story. No, you tweet at her, but tweet it in a nice way. Be like, hey, Chloe, I know this seems like a feel-good story, but we live in a system where it doesn't make sense that somebody that's 84 years old should go back to work. Like, that's it. Like, or make it a question. Hey, this seems like a nice story. This lady's nice, but always start off with some kind words. The lady's nice. Seems like a nice heartfelt story, but we should also consider the fact that this lady shouldn't be having to work at 84. So if you're able to frame it in that way, then you're actually going to get through to people. But you're not going to get through to people when you're just piling on them. I guarantee you, Chloe right now just thinks all her mentions are a bunch of whack jobs. Like, you have to communicate in a way that is empathetic and understand that Chloe's not at fault here. It's the institution that taught her to report this way. All right. We are learning a lot today, everybody. we are getting deep into it. Okay, I got another story coming up. Can you imagine? Let me grab some chats first, if there are more left. A lot of support today. It's pretty amazing. Michael Cuomo says, thank you. Also a regular. Many regulars, as I said earlier. Michael Cuomo says, thank you, David, for being so far the only one, I might be wrong, calling out my horrific representative, Kathleen Rice of New York's 4th District. I got to be honest with you. I don't remember calling her out. Maybe I did, but I don't necessarily remember doing that. Though her name is familiar, so it's possible I did. Noah Newmark says, new survey of DNC delegates shows 75% support for Medicare for all and 88% of Dem voters support Harris in a Harris Hill poll. It should be in the platform, 2020delegates.com. Yeah, it should. But as I've discussed earlier, not today, but in other videos, Biden's platform is molded by the donors. He has a lot of money from Big Pharma and the healthcare industry in general. So that's why he doesn't support it. And it's not even just a majority of Democrats, a majority of voters overall. Look at, I think it's Kaiser Family Foundation recent poll, but many polls show this. A majority of voters overall support Medicare for all. And that is even while there is so much misinformation about it. Think if people actually had the real information readily available, what they would think and how much support would be. So this is hopefully, I mean, it's part of my job to try and inform people, and hopefully you share the videos like that to your friends and family who are misinformed on the healthcare debate, because that debate is largely driven in the mainstream press by those big donors. All you got to do is look outside your borders, look at other countries, see how they're doing. They're doing healthcare a little differently, a lot differently. And the results when it comes to coronavirus, of course, healthcare is just one part of it, but you see in the results that U.S. ain't doing too well compared to the rest of the world. Lloyd Tucker says, add India to the graph just for the lulls. Let me bring it up here. India looks fine. So maybe their numbers are being misreported. I don't know. I heard India wasn't doing too well, but they're down here. So I don't know. I mean, it's increasing now, but it wasn't bad before, apparently. But yeah, it's mostly the U.S. and Brazil. It's not doing really well. All right. One last super chat here before I go on to the next story. McCarry's39 says, Ben Shapiro was a horrible excuse for a human being. I don't blame you for getting angry. I can't stand him. I agree. I think I have like 3 different versions of my Ben Shapiro voice, depending on how lubricated my voice box is. All right. Going to pour myself another drink of coffee here and get going. Definitely coffee. All right. Get going, as in get going to the next story, which I will prep right now. All right. I screw up? Oh. All right. I just caught a chat. Bob and Ellie, I'm going to smoke my coffee right now. That's pretty funny. All right. Here we go. So Joe Biden and Barack Obama had a recent discussion, a sit-down, a physically distancing sit-down, discussing many issues, including healthcare. So let me play this clip, and I'm going to talk about the issues with their position on healthcare.
I remember when Bo was toward the end, and the only person I told the detail all the time was you, because you had a right to know exactly what. And he only had months left to go, and I used to sit there watch him in the bed, and in pain, and dying of glioblastoma, and I thought to myself, what would happen if his insurance company was able to come in, which they could have done before past Obamacare, and said, you've outrun your insurance, you've outlived it. Suffer the last 5 months of your life in peace. You're on your own. All the things that it did, that it was so profound an impact on people, it was like it took them a while until they started to take it away to realize what was happening.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, you and I both know what it's like to have somebody you love get really sick. And in some cases to lose somebody, but that loss is compounded when you see the stress on their faces because they're worried that they're being a burden on their families. They're worried about whether the insurance is going to cover the treatments that they need. I couldn't be prouder of what we got done. 20 million people have health insurance that didn't have it because of what we did.
All right. It is amazing that they're able to appear to have empathy and not understand how many people right now are losing their health care in America because they had it tied to their employer. And that the cost of coronavirus treatment, just that treatment, let's forget, cancer, everything else going on in the world, just coronavirus treatment, it can cost people up to $70,000 if you're uninsured. Don't they understand the problem with the Affordable Care Act, with Obamacare? But of course they do. Of course they do. But the issue, when you look into it, and I've discussed this in other videos, Biden's campaign is heavily funded by Big Pharma, by the for-profit health industry. Now look, obviously, just so it's obvious, Trump is obviously worse. Trump wants to repeal Obamacare. He has no proposed replacement for it, which would eliminate coverage for pre-existing conditions and would throw millions and millions off healthcare. So they would have nothing. Obviously, Trump is a lot worse. Obviously, his position, his policy or lack thereof is much worse. But that doesn't give Joe Biden a pass. Medicare for all, as a Canadian who lives with a single-payer system, there is no argument against Medicare for all. You would have health care guaranteed to you regardless of your employment. So let me show you what it looks like right now in the U.S. This is, in 18 weeks, 53 million workers filed for unemployment. So keep in mind, this is just who filed for unemployment. Many are already unemployed or haven't filed. But here, 53 million workers, a massive chunk of those workers, massive chunk, also had their health care tied to their employer and no longer have that health care. Oh, but they can pay into it with Cobra. Oh, great. They can pay into it with Cobra. With what money? And even if in Biden's plan you protect that, how about the people that are uninsured? What do? They didn't have a job. They have no health care. What do? The only reason Biden doesn't back Medicare for all is because of his big donors. You look at polling when it comes to Medicare for all, not just Democrats. Democrat support is like 90%. You look at overall voters. A majority of voters overall. Look at a recent Kaiser Family Foundation poll. There's more polls you can look at that show the exact same result. A majority of voters overall support a government-run healthcare system. And that is even with all the misinformation out there about Medicare for all and single payer. Because people understand that the status quo is not working. It's not working, and they have experience with it not working. 67% of bankruptcy filers cite illness and medical bills as contributors to financial ruin. 67% of people that go bankrupt, it's at least partially due to medical bills. That doesn't exist in these universal systems. Nobody goes bankrupt over medical bills in Canada. It doesn't exist. Yet here, most people that go bankrupt, medical bills is part of the problem. How can you defend this system? Or this from Harvard. And by the way, there's an update to this study. I couldn't find it, but I believe it's about 60,000 people instead of 45,000. But Harvard Gazette study from 2009, new study finds 45,000 deaths annually linked to lack of health coverage. 45,000 people a year die due to a lack of access to healthcare. Again, that doesn't exist in Canada. And by the way, this is before, obviously, 2009, before the pandemic. So who knows what the hell it is now? But this is during normal times. 45,000 people a year die over lack of access to healthcare. How can these two possibly defend this system? There's no defending of it. And in fact, you saw Barack Obama come out, I believe 2 years ago now, during a speech he gave, of course, once he has no power, during a speech, talk about how we have good new ideas like Medicare for all. He called Medicare for all a good new idea. A good new idea. Medicare for all. Yet he's not pushing Joe Biden to back it. When you see people in positions of power that you know better, this is why I get animated over Democrats, because they know better. When it comes to Republicans, we know their game. We know it's all about the donors at all times. It's all about amassing wealth. They don't care. It's all about capitalism. They don't care at all about people ever. We know that already. Democrats should be fighting for you, and they don't. You have Bernie Sanders, who's an independent. You can see why. Bernie Sanders fighting for Medicare for all. AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Pramila Jayapal, Ro Khanna, several Congress people. But in terms of people with actual power, Obama had power, didn't push for it. Joe Biden has power right now as a nominee, will have power if he wins, is against Medicare for all. In fact, Biden said he would veto Medicare for all if it came to his desk. That shows you where his interests are. So for somebody who's supposed to have empathy, to still not understand, or not even understand, to not care enough to actually fight to help people. This is why, if Biden wins, the fight has to start immediately. The movements have to start immediately, and they have to be focused fights. Not these big protests that don't really mean anything. No, a focused fight for specific policy issues. A specific fight for Medicare for all. Biden has to see his approval numbers drop immediately. You have to make him act. You have to make the administration fear movements, fear the people. Because you know what Biden's going to bring in is not going to be enough. It's just not. His strengthening the Affordable Care Act, even a public option, it's nowhere near what people need. In fact, the public option, there's a lot of speculation that it could actually be worse because it would give private insurance companies a way to offset all the sick people onto the public system, then drain the public system of resources. So then those private insurance companies can turn around and go, hey, look at that. The public system not working out. Yeah, because you put all the sick people onto the public system. So there's a lot of fear that that could happen under a public option. The fight has to be Medicare for all. It has to be single payer healthcare. And it has to start from the beginning. All right. Those are my main stories today. That's my main work. There's several other things that I may do this one story because I like the video, but I didn't really prep it. But I'll get to that in a minute. Let me see if there's more super chats here. There we go. Sonia Bykovsky says the Republicans are heartless, the Democrats are spineless, and both are bought off by corporations. I am planning to apply for political asylum to Canada. Well, Sonia, I guess good luck. But yeah, I agree with you. All right. Let me play this video. Actually, before I do that, this is, I just want to share this. I didn't really know how to properly prep this. Oh shit, the tweet's gone. Never mind. Well, I still got this one. I want to share this. So Elon Musk today tweeted this out. Another government stimulus package is not in the best interests of the people, in my opinion. Elon Musk here, not for actually helping people during this pandemic. Yet, he claims to favor here a UBI, saying the goal of government should be to maximize the happiness of the people. Giving each person money allows them to decide what meets their needs rather than the blunt tool of legislation, which creates self-serving special interests. I got nothing against giving people money, but he clearly is against helping people. He's against investment into the economy, into people. What I found funny about this, Ken Clippett stayed here, tweets out the LA Times story. Elon Musk's growing empire is fueled by $4.9 billion in government subsidies. So while he is fighting against a stimulus package for people, Elon Musk, that's how he makes his money. Now, look, if Elon Musk is just saying that he's against the way that it's being done, not going to argue. Because as we've seen, Democrats and the GOP have not been putting the money where it should be put when it comes to helping people. But if that's the case, he should maybe phrase this a little better, because his business has relied heavily on government aid. So let's hope he is a little more clear about how he's amassed his wealth. But now let me get to. So this is a story I didn't really prep much for, but I really enjoyed the clip that I saw here. In fact, there's two clips. Okay, I haven't seen the second one, but let's check out the first one. So Bernie Sanders was on CNN recently, and I want to share a couple clips here. Here's the first one where they talk about some misinformation about who voted for who in 2016 and in 2008.
Do you believe that your supporters...
Let me fix the audio for you people.
Do you believe that your...
Not good enough.
Do you believe that your supporters will vote for him? Because remember what happened in 2016 when about a quarter did not vote for Hillary Clinton.
No, that's not true. Christiane, that is not true. It was not a quarter of our voters who did not vote for Hillary Clinton. That is a false number. But more importantly...
Okay, so if my figure was wrong, there was nonetheless a significant Bernie or bust, number. But my question to you is this, that there are still, according to the polls, despite the lead that Biden holds right now, there are still young people who are less than excited and progressives in the minority communities. What can you do, and are you confident now that they will do what you're saying, come to vote because of the gravity of this moment?
Well, let me go back a moment on your numbers. My understanding is more people who voted for Hillary Clinton in 2008 voted for John McCain than people who voted for me in 2016 who voted for Trump. But to answer your question, I think what the Biden campaign does understand is that we did really, really well among young people, white and black and Latino, Native American, Asian American. We did pretty badly among older people. And what I think the Biden campaign understands, they're going to have to reach out and bring those people into the fold. And I think they are making some success.
All right, a couple things here. Actually, first, credit here to Ibrahim for sharing this clip. This speaks to a couple of things. First, there is so much, and clearly there continues to be so much misinformation about what Bernie supporters actually did in 2016. There's so much reporting on this. I've done videos on, I think multiple videos on this now. In 2016, a lot more Bernie Sanders voters voted for Hillary Clinton than Hillary Clinton voters voted for Obama in 2008. In fact, 25% of Hillary Clinton voters in 2008 voted for John McCain over Barack Obama. With Bernie Sanders, the number is between 6 to 12%. That is an exact figure because I've talked about it so many times. I will link to the sources below the video afterwards if I clip this out of the live stream. But it's between 6 to 12. There's two different polling on that. But with Hillary voters, 25% of them voted for John McCain over Barack Obama. And on top of that, second point here, Bernie Sanders doesn't control his voters. That's on Joe Biden. You have to understand as a friggin' journalist why people supported Bernie Sanders. They supported him not because of his personality, even though nothing's wrong with his personality, but that isn't why they supported him. People supported Bernie Sanders because of his fight, because of his 40-year record of fighting for the poor and the working class, because of his policies, because of Medicare for all, because of canceling student debt, because of free public college, because of his approach to foreign policy. People supported Bernie Sanders because of what he stood for. Bernie saying, okay, go vote for Joe. That doesn't do anything. Bernie voters actually care about the issues, by and large. They actually care about the issues. Now, yes, a lot of them right now understand the threat that Donald Trump is and will vote for Joe Biden over Trump because they don't want fascism, which I think is perfectly reasonable. But it is at Bernie Sanders here over his voters as if he controls them, as if he's like a dictator of some sort, or some cult leader. It's completely ridiculous. That it completely disregards how the human brain actually functions. It completely disregards why people supported Bernie Sanders. So it is on the Joe Biden campaign to get those people. It's not on Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is doing whatever he can. He dropped out early. He backed Joe Biden. They had the Joint Policy Task Force. He keeps going on TV supporting Joe Biden. He can't do anything else. He doesn't control his voters. the Biden campaign has to actually speak to those people, and doing something like maybe supporting Medicare for all that already has a 90% support in the Democratic Party and a majority of all voter support. Maybe backing Medicare for all would be a good idea for Joe Biden, but hasn't done it. So the anger here should actually be directed at Joe Biden and his campaign for not doing enough to attract Bernie voters, even though I think for the most part, Sanders voters are on board with Biden simply because they want to vote against Trump, not because they like Joe Biden. But one more clip here. Let's check this out.
A final question, because amongst many in the...
Why does it keep doing this?
A final question, because amongst many in the post-George Floyd moment, there is a cry for defund the police. Now, James Clyburn doesn't agree with that. He's very worried that it goes back to the 60s, the burn, baby, burn, and puts the movement on the back foot. Joe Biden, I don't think, agrees with that. Where do you stand on that? And how can you persuade voters that Democrats do stand for, you know, proper law and order, but they don't stand for the militarization of the police that we've seen?
No, that's exactly right. Look, if we mean by defunding the police and understanding that there is a lot of stuff that police departments now are forced to do, they're dealing with homelessness. Are they the best trained people in the country to deal with homelessness? No, they're not. They're dealing with drug addiction and alcoholism. And I think that we can move forward to redefine what the function of a police department is. And that's the direction I think we need to go. We also need to make the police departments of this country look like the communities that they are representing. And we need to get this heavy-duty military equipment out of local communities, because otherwise the police look like an occupying army. So there is a lot that has to be done in terms of police reform. But I think the vast majority of the American people do not believe it is a good idea to simply defund the police department, have no police departments at all. There's no city in the world that exists under those conditions.
All right, so I don't really understand how defund the police turned into abolish the police. Now, are there people out there saying to abolish the police? Yes, and there is, there are books about it. There's arguments. Again, it's not even necessarily. It doesn't even necessarily mean that there's no law or no law enforcement at all. It just would be done in a different fashion. But that isn't even the discussion. Defund the police. To me, it's the most obvious phrase. It just means defund. Now, the debate is how much defunding. So I think Bernie there hits the right note that at least currently should be the focus. We can talk about more later on, but currently should be the focus. Moving responsibilities away from police departments into other areas. So issues of public health, like addiction, as he discussed, homelessness, mental health calls, those should be moved away from the police and put into public healthcare professionals. So there are ways to deal with those situations where you have better outcomes. As you see, oftentimes when the police arrive to like a mental distress call, it doesn't end well. Having armed individuals respond to somebody in mental distress, it doesn't. You can kind of see where that can end up, and oftentimes it is as bad as it can get. So the beginning of the conversation is taking those responsibilities away from the cops, and you can also discuss this in a way that actually benefits the cops. You can say, hey, if you have 10 different responsibilities, are you really going to be that good at each individual responsibility that has their own method, their own way of dealing with them, than if you had, say, 5 responsibilities? No. So by taking some of these responsibilities away from the police and into other areas, you are in fact actually helping these police departments so they can keep their focus towards, just responding to, violent crime, for example. So it bothers me that you have CNN here not able to communicate the actual differences, the actual argument, that they're also feeding into the propaganda. I mean, not even feeding in. Of course, They're part of the propaganda, of course. But my point is, understand the resources that they have, the money that these individuals make. And instead of those resources being put in towards informing people, those resources are put into continuing the propaganda, continuing the misinformation. They could have easily broken down what defund the police means, what the actual fight is about right now, and even also break down, sure, the abolish police aspect and what those arguments are, and bring up books and literature that has to do with that, so you have an actual real argument and people can understand what that means as well. But they don't do that. They don't do that. They instead create false narratives and just propagate the propaganda. Propagate the propaganda? Not really sure that made sense. But that's what it is. All right. All right. Wow, we had a great... There's more. Don't worry. I'll get to some chats if there are some, which I think there are. But I think I touched on everything I wanted to touch on today. Yes, I did. Just double checking. Sometimes I will miss a story in the middle, and I didn't even realize I missed it. Nope. Got it all. Good. All right. Checking the chats here. Francis Leroy says, global treasure. Michael Brooks, rest in peace. Amen. Jay Pearson with the thumbs up emoji. Thank you. Ravi Parimi says, also Jay, he's a regular. Ravi Parimi says, mainstream media preparing the grounds to blame Bernie if Trump wins again. Yeah, I mean, that's sure what it seems like for sure. But, others, so I wish I didn't call her during this. I'm just really bad at pronouncing her name. Christian Amanpour, is that it? Christiane Amanpour, yeah. I should have been more prepared for saying her name. But, yeah. Amanpour was doing it, but Bernie was actually on... He was on MSNBC with... What's her name? Oh my God. Alzheimer's. The one married to the rich guy, which is like, probably describes all of them. But oh my God, I forget her name. I gotta find it. Andrea Mitchell. Jesus Christ. Andrea Mitchell. So Bernie was on with Andrea Mitchell. And she was actually praising him. Andrea Mitchell was saying, you've done everything you can to fight for Joe Biden. Like, she was giving him credit for fighting for Joe Biden, which is what he's been doing the whole damn time, like, to the anger of many people, in fact. But that's what's been going on. And so for the most part, I think the media is recognizing what Bernie is trying to do. But yeah, you're going to have Christiane Amanpour here, which I'm sure I'm saying her name wrong. Yeah, she's Andrea Mitchell's married to Alan Greenspan. That's why I said married to the rich guy. Super rich guy. All right. Next question, I think it exists. Here we go. Nick says, I'm a little late, but thanks for keeping it up in these hard times. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for your euros. Much appreciated. 20 euros. Wow. Thank you. Ken Clive says, the way defund the police has been misinterpreted by the mainstream media is exactly why we can't have constructive discourse these days. Yeah. Thank you, Ken, for your donation. Yes. And I got to think it's largely intentional. But there are always those glimmer, those moments where mainstream media pierces that bubble and they actually talk about these issues constructively and with actual facts and people that understand the arguments on to discuss it. So when I see that, it always blows me away, because it's like if these people are actually part of the propaganda, which they are, but if they have these moments, then it's not like they're not allowed to have the discussions. It's just that we mostly hear the bullshit. We mostly get the bullshit, and occasionally we get a fact-based discussion on these issues. Player 2 says defund Paw Patrol. Didn't they cancel the show? I don't know anything about Paw Patrol. I just know it's a show with cartoon dogs, I think, and they're police. It's for kids. I thought they stopped the end of the show, though, but I could be wrong. Pop Reality says Bernie put his DC friendships above the movement. I don't agree with that. No, Bernie knows his place as a politician at the moment. What is he going to do right now? Biden has no power. Biden's just the nominee. Biden has power once he wins. So Bernie wants Biden to win, because then we can actually fight Joe Biden to maybe get some concessions on something. As I discussed earlier, it requires a massive movement, and I'm not guaranteeing anything will happen. But Trump, look what Trump does to protests. He snatches people off the street into unmarked vans. He tear gasses moms. That's what you get with the Donald Trump presidency. With Joe Biden, you have some ability to put pressure without being kidnapped by unmarked vans. So there's a difference there. And if you look back in Bernie's history, he fought Obama publicly when Obama was president, fought him publicly on Obama's inclination to cut Social Security. So Bernie understands power and how to fight power and who's in power and when to and how to do that. He knows his job isn't an activist, even though at times Bernie, in terms of a politician, very much it has activist tendencies, fighting for big issues that, at the beginning, people weren't really on board for Medicare for all back in 2016 or 2015. Then he got people on board. So he has those tendencies, but he knows his place as a politician. I know my place as a commentator who can call Biden's bullshit out. And activists and people in the streets, they know their place. So we all have different roles, right? And Bernie understands that his power right now is best used getting close to Biden as much as possible, and then smacking him in the face with a movement and fighting him if Biden doesn't give into any of these bigger issues like Medicare for all, student debt cancellation, or what have you. Four Lils C says, thank you for what you do. I didn't make it to the entire stream, but did you talk about AOC being accosted by Yoho? I did not. I thought about talking about this. It's more of a story that came out yesterday. Look, for me, there's not much to say. AOC had a great speech. It was 10 minutes long. Due to the nature of the show, I'm not going to just play a 10-minute video of AOC talking. So people don't want to see that can go see that. I, of course, could bring highlights out of it, but I don't know. I did not cover it, but it was a good moment for AOC, and a good moment in general, calling out, the toxicity, how a lot of people, not just AOC, but how people in general, how women are treated in the workplace. And I mean, if I covered it, it would basically be me playing the video and then saying, good job, AOC. My point is, I don't know what to add to the conversation as a commentator. So if I don't have anything to add, I don't know. But it is a great moment. If you want to know what she's talking about, look it up. Look up AOC Yoho, and if you find a 10-minute speech, actually C-SPAN, go to C-SPAN on YouTube. They have the full 10-minute speech. It's yesterday. You will see it, and it's a great speech. The Sing on the Left says the new anti-Trump ad, David, is devastating. The new anti-Trump ad. From who specifically? If I hit Twitter just randomly, are people going to be like, oh my God, there it is? Because I got to find it. Now I want to know. Is it a Biden ad? Let me check Joe Biden's page. Okay, I don't know if this is what it is. Actually, you know what? I don't want to play. There's always issues. Every friggin' week, I play one of these videos, and it's like copyright music, and like the whole channel has a strike on it, and it becomes a big issue. So unless I pre-screen the videos and I understand what they use, I'm not going to take down my whole live stream over it. But maybe if it's something worth covering, I will bring it up next week. Pop Reality says, look what Obama did to Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street was allowed to go on for quite a while. And the issue with Occupy is there was never a clear, specific policy fight. Yes, it was about how, you know, certain people have too much money and the inequality. Yes. But you have to compare that to, say, the protests when it came to the Dakota Access Pipeline, which resulted in Obama ending the pipeline and Trump restarting it months later when he became president. So you have to look at how those fights were had. And, you know, at the very least, Occupy woke a lot of people up to a rigged system and sort of got the ground ready for Bernie Sanders to run in 2015. And he came really close to defeating Hillary. But in that process, he brought, you know, he raised the profile of many issues that are now progressive staples like Medicare for all. So, I mean, if you want to talk about protests working, Obama and the pipeline. He put an end to that after those protests. Yes, it took too long. Yes, I agree. Those protesters were not treated properly. Yes, I agree with all of it. But ultimately, he ended the pipeline. So the protest worked. And Trump restarted the pipeline, and actually recently it was just, I think, shot down by, I think, the Supreme Court. Or not the Supreme Court. It was shot down somehow. So I think that pipeline's actually, it's been put to an end now, but not because Trump decided to end it. So look at the difference there when it comes to protesting and the opportunity to actually make change. Yada News says you're going to give Howie Hawkins the platform he deserves. Maybe as more of a conversation. I don't know. I think this is... Look, the Green Party needs to stop focusing on the national fight as their only thing. You got to get people in Congress. Get people in state seats. Like, you have to... You can't expect to be taken seriously if you just show up every 4 years and fight for the presidency. Like, come on now. You have to show you have the ability to win locally, statewide, and then in Congress. Like, if there is some real investment there, and it's not even just on the Green Party, it has to be on the people that apparently support the Green Party. If you support the Green Party so much, then fight for them between elections. Fight for them in other races. Fight to get local seats. Like, fight to get somebody in Congress. I ran as a Green Party candidate in Canada. I got nothing against the Green Party. I'm down for the fight. But you have to understand how to build interest and build movement. You don't just do it every 4 years. And now, honestly, is the worst time to try and build any movement because people just see Donald Trump and they just want to get Donald Trump out. They don't even care who the Democratic nominee is. They just want to get Donald Trump out. So now is not the good time or a good time to try and build a movement. You have to do it between elections. The actual fight happens between elections. People need to understand that, you know, voting for the president isn't your only source of power here. You have to build energy. You have to have grassroots movements. You have to have groups, fights, people involved between the elections. That's where the actual fight and the growth is generated. All right. I believe that's it. What a stream today. That was what, 2.5 hours? Damn. Not bad. Not bad. Tomorrow, I may have some free time. So I might actually be on Twitch tomorrow, likely playing a game because it's my day off. Can't expect me to work every day. But there's a good chance I might be on Twitch. So twitch.tv/The Rational National. Link is below the video in the description box. Possibly playing Paper Mario. Maybe Ghost of Tsushima, though I kind of want to keep that one for, where I'm just focused on the game, as it's very story heavy. But yeah, Paper Mario and chat with the people there, with the people in the chat might be fun. Let me grab some random chats here. Usman Abdullah says, David, what are your thoughts on David Pakman? I personally like you both. I think there's a space for everybody. And what I mean by that is I think we all fill different audiences. And, there's some crossover, of course. But I agree with Pakman being anti-Trump. I'm down for that fight. I think I may be a little more, likely a little more left than he is, but that doesn't discredit him or what he does. I think it's important that people like him exist. I think it's important that people that are, socialists or communists, it's important they exist. It's important to have kind of the full spectrum, and really everybody adds something to the conversation. So that's my take. Is I got no problem with them. David Williams says, Nina Turner for VP. That would be great, but unrealistic. Not going to happen. I am sorry. It's not going to happen. Barbara Lee is somebody that absolutely should have been on Biden's list. I think would have been possible if there was enough of a fight from the beginning to get her on there. But it's going to be unlikely. Barbara Lee being the only vote against the war in Afghanistan. Check out new Cornel West podcast. Yes, I did see that. Cornel West launched a new podcast. I'm going to feel bad here because I don't remember the other person on the podcast, but it's him and somebody else. And I do want to check that out. Cloudy Skies Now says, play Ghost of Tsushima, David. You mean on Twitch or in general? Because I am playing it in general. The problem with playing on Twitch is I want to interact with people in the chat, right? That game, I just got to be glued to the screen. Whereas Paper Mario, it doesn't really require my immediate attention. Oh, another chat, I think. Just heard one. Okay. This thing on the left told me how to try and find this video. This ad, this anti-Trump ad. Oh, really American? Okay, let me. Okay, just so you all know, if you watch this later, the audio may be gone. If the music in this is copyrighted, I don't know. But let's check out this ad. I believe it's this one. Because Really American, for the most part, has put out pretty good videos. They follow me. Hey, look at that. Maybe I'll follow them back. They put out really good videos. So let's check it out. Oh, of course, I'm not. There you go.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
In the good old days, they used to treat them very, very rough. And when they protested once, they would not do it again so easily. We've become weak. The problem is nobody wants to hurt each other anymore.
And when you see these thugs being thrown into the back of a paddy wagon, rough, I said, please don't be too nice.
These are people. These are animals.
And I'll never forget the scene. It's not supposed to be a beautiful scene, but to me it was. It was like a knife cutting butter right through. Boom. You have to dominate the streets. You can't let what's happening happen.
Last week, we were seeing the de-escalation of the violence. We were seeing things calm down, but the intervention of federal officers reignited tensions.
Protesters have been gassed repeatedly, even after our court said not to.
Federal agencies should never be used as your own personal army. Let's be clear, this is not political theater. This is far more dangerous than that. This is an attack on our democracy.
We're doing a great job in Portland.
That seems pretty good. People are complaining in the chat that Reagan's at the beginning. I barely even noticed.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
I don't think they're using him to praise him. They're using him because he's talking about how freedom is never, or basically freedom is almost extinct. Is kind of what the point here is. So I don't know. I'm not triggered by that. Whatever. They aren't praising Reagan in this video. Clearly it's about Trump and this lawlessness. But pretty good. Pretty good. Where do these go though? Like I have seen, like, Really American has done several videos, but I'm not sure how they're funded. I'm not sure where these are these going on television. This is pretty long for a television ad. Are they going to be on like YouTube? I don't know. I have not learned yet how they're going to use these videos. It could just be an internet thing. Try to get it viral or something. All right. Lauren Nicole 84 says, greetings from Nevada. Greetings, Nicole, or Lauren Nicole. Thank you. Or Laura Nicole. Laura Nicole. I think that's probably your name. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. All right. I believe it is time to go. 5:30, 2.5 hours. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for all the chat. Had a good time today. Again, Twitch. If you missed the beginning of the stream, I do a Twitch live stream every morning on Twitch, obviously. Twitch.tv/The Rational National. Link is below the video. You'll see the Twitch link. Just follow me on there. I'll tell you when I go live. But I usually go live 10 a.m. Eastern time to 11 a.m. So Monday to Thursday. It's kind of what I do. It's like a little morning show. You get a little preview maybe of some of the things I'll talk about later on my show. And I talk with the chat and stuff. It's a good time. All right. Thank you all for coming, and see you next week. Goodbye.